Typhoon Yolanda's impact to the country delivered a wake-up call that the threat of climate change is real. The good news, government has been very proactive in planning and preparing our people to adapt to the impact of nature's fury whenever it strikes. So joining us tonight here on NewsLife is Secretary Lucille Sering of the Climate Change Commission. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening to everybody. Good evening to you, Kathy.
Ma'am, disaster resilience is part of creating climate change resilient communities. And how well are we doing as a nation in climate change mitigation and adaptation?
We already have mainstreamed some of these policies in government plans. We already passed the National Climate Change Action Plan. We signed a memorandum agreement with the National Disaster Risk Reduction Council for how to mainstream more of these initiatives in local government plans. And we hope to be able to implement this. We know we've learned a lot in Yolanda, and we hope to correct what we feel it was lacking at that time, but you can never really prepare for something like Yolanda.
Mm-hmm. Ma'am, what are different priorities under the National Climate Change Action Plan?
Well, there are 7 thematic areas in the National Climate Change Action Plan. One of the things that would be related to El Nino would be on food security. We know that the first sector that we will be so concerned about is that our agriculture will be most affected, considering that water will be reduced in times of droughts. But we hope that, as mentioned earlier by our experts, there are ways to be able to adapt to these changes. Rainwater harvesting is one of those. And also those little like to remind our community to save on water now that we know that there's already a warning of El Nino.
Mm-hmm. Ma'am, you mentioned about rainwater harvesting. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but this is actually a law, but not a lot of our fellow Filipinos are aware of this.
Yes, we know that sometimes this is really a main challenge for our country, but we'd like to ask media, and I think one of the things we would like to push further is really the information that these laws are there and they're meant to address a problem, and so the solutions are there. We just need to be able to reach out further to the community, especially those that don't have any access, especially to electricity, that we will try to give the community more information to make sure that they'll be able to adjust to these changes.
Mm-hmm. The Philippines is vulnerable, and that is a fact. Mm-hmm. So, ma'am, the commission has a project called Eco Towns. Can you tell us more about this effort?
One of the things we started when the Climate Change Act was signed in 2009 is to look at the vulnerabilities of our communities. And we started with the National Climate Change Action Plan on how the national agencies can be able to best support initiatives at the local level. Most of the plans before we had this eco-town are not based on vulnerabilities. So these are the priorities under these plans is we need to be able to help our local communities to have a plan that is risk-based, based on science, provided with an expert advice so that they plan based on the vulnerabilities, for example, in times of lack of water, in times of a lot of water, and we're talking about extreme weather events that have long been predicted that would be an impact of climate change. So under this Ecotown framework, we've finished already some areas and the pilot areas, and the results are very encouraging. We hope to be able to scale this up the soonest time possible.
Mm-hmm. And ma'am, were some of these communities affected by the recent typhoon, and how and what lessons were learned from the typhoon?
In fact, yes. Siargao, which was also hit by Yolanda under signal number 3, it was 0 casualty. And then they were also hit by the next typhoon, which is, I think they were hit by the last 5 typhoons starting from Yolanda, and all 0 casualties. But they're all saying that they need to improve their response on and the way they prepare in terms of their, especially not just on flooding, but also on droughts, especially that the El Nino is being predicted to happen at the start in June.
You mentioned the role of the LGUs. How important is the role of the LGUs in implementing climate change resilient cities or municipalities?
Very important, because they are really the first to deal with these things, because what's applicable, for example, in Manila might not necessarily be applicable in Siargao. So the local government, who knows more of their terrain, who knows more of their circumstance, should be the first to respond. And the national government is here to provide them with technical assistance and other support that the local government cannot immediately take on under their current budget. But we know that these are the realities of the times, and under the presidency of President Aquino, under his administration, this is one of the priorities. We'll be presenting the cluster roadmap of the climate change adaptation and mitigation in the next few days. And rest assured that the President has really taken full responsibility and full attention on this matter.
Ma'am, what are the challenges that you're currently experiencing in your way to the successful implementation of the National Climate Change Action Plan?
Just like any plan, and maybe the main challenge is really to be able to reach out to capacitate our local government units, especially the community, to provide them this capacity building so that they'll be able to integrate these tools in their current plans. And just like any plan, it takes time, it goes to a process, and by the time they'll be able to finish it, there will be another typhoon coming in. Maybe we're not as fast as adjusting to these changes, but at least we never lack the intention to do it properly.
And ma'am, finally, a lot of people think climate change is such a big concept. What can our viewers do in their personal capacity to contribute?
Well, what we need to do as an individual is to be informed, because the information, ang impormasyon na alam natin ang siyang magliligtas sa atin. The reason why we're all here is that we need to be able to share to everybody, and this is not just a problem of government alone. It's also a problem. It's also a challenge for the private sector and to an individual. And if we work on this together, there's no greater challenge that we cannot overcome.
And on that note, thank you very much, Secretary Lucille Sering of the Climate Change Commission.